What do you get when you cross this with this? You get this. It's a microcolor computer, and it's one of the things we'll be featuring next on this edition of Tech Throwback. Hello and welcome to Tech Throwback, the program that takes a look at techno trends from way back when. I'm your host, Bill Robert, and tonight we'll feature a handheld wizard, a condensed console, but first, a Micro Coco, today's senior system. Welcome back to the Tech Throwback Computer Lab, and today we're going to take a look at the smallest member of the Radio Shack color computer family, the Micro Color Computer MC10. The MC10 Micro Color Computer was manufactured by the Tandy Corporation and sold through their Radio Shack outlets. It was released in 1983. The list price was $119.95. Now on board, the computer had 4K of RAM, but you could get an optional 20K, basically by adding a 16K RAM expansion module. So you would just plug it in the back, and once again we mentioned the similarities between this and the Timex Sinclair 1000. That's a big one, the plug-in RAM expansion pack on the back. The CPU inside ran at just under a megahertz, 0.89 megahertz to be exact, and the graphics capability, it could do screens up to 128 by 192, but if you added the RAM module, you could get up to 256 by 192. This is the actual unit here. That's it. That's the whole computer right here. And it's still bigger than the CS1000, obviously, but much smaller than the Coco 2, or the Coco 1 for that matter, or even the later Coco 3. Now, as we go in the box here, in the box you got the computer, but then you got all the things you needed to get going here. You got your startup guide, quick startup guide, tells you how to get the thing going. And then you've got the owner's manual, which gives you not only more detailed instructions as to how to use the computer, but it gave you some sample basic programs as well, and different options as far as doing things with the memory using pokes and peeks to try and get the machine to behave differently. Also in it was an RF cable that you needed to hook it up to the TV, and then remember these things? You used to see these with video game consoles a lot on older TVs that still had the twin lead, the screw leads there. You would just connect this right to your TV, you'd connect your antenna in here, you'd plug this cable right in here, and then you would switch back and forth between computer and TV. So that was what was in the box. And this, by the way, I picked this up on eBay, and the seller had included something else in here. Now, the only way you could really get programs on and off this thing is via cassette, and Tandy did actually sell some specially branded computer cassettes. There's one that came with the box, and if you listen here, you notice it's really shiny. Hear that noise there? That's cellophane. This thing has never been opened, so it's kind of a fun little collector's item there for computer geeks like me, a freshly wrapped TRS-80 blank cassette there. So with that said, let's take a look at some of the features of the MC10 color computer. The Coco 1, 2, and 3 all had the power button on the back. It was just a simple locking push button. In the case of the MC10, it was this switch right here, just a standard sliding on-off power switch. Then if you look at the back here, these are all the connections you'd need to set this up, starting off with the connection here for the AC adapter. Basically just plug it in one of those inline wall warts, we like to call them. Then there's the connection for the TV right there. Just a standard RF modulator goes through either channel 3 or channel 4 on your TV set. On the other side, you had a reset button. The nice thing about this is if you had a program that froze or hung, basically you could turn the unit off and then back on, but you would lose everything that you'd programmed in. If you were working on a program and something froze or something went goofy and you had to bail out of it, switching it on and off wasn't the way to do it. If you hit reset, instead of switching it on and off, if you hit the reset button here, basically what would wind up happening is the computer would restart, but it wouldn't completely restart. It would still have all of the contents of the memory, which means that you could hit the reset button, it would bail out of a stuck program, but you would still have your program in there so you can still do your edits and do it, whatever you need to do to correct the problem. After that, you had right here for serial in and out. This worked mostly for printers. One of the big differences between the TRS-80 color computer here and the Timex Sinclair 1000, the TS-1000 only had one printer that came with it. It was a specialized printer that used thermal paper and plugged in line with the memory expansion port. Here actually it's just a standard 4-pin serial, which means you could use it with most of the Tandy dot matrix printers that use the 4-pin convention on the connector. And right after that is the cassette. This is what you use to load programs and save programs. It would be a specialized cable. It's a 5-pin DIN to basically three 2/1/8 and one 3/32 connector, and you'd plug it into a standard tape recorder, and this would allow you to get data on and off the unit. Now this plate in the middle here, that's the plate that actually covers the card edge that you would plug the expansion module onto, much like the TS-1000. This also had an optional expansion module, one of which I don't have yet. One of these days I'm hoping to get one, and you pull this panel off and just plug the unit right on back, basically right there. Hooking up the MC10, very simple. All you needed, 2 cables, at least for starters, and the one cable here is your power adapter. You just plug that in the back. This goes to your TV in port, or the little switch box we showed you before. Just plug those 2 items in, hit the switch, boom, there you go, you're computing. And this is the splash screen that you saw there, and it's Microcolor Basic 1.0. Microcolor Basic is actually different than the standard Color Basic that was used on the Coco 1 and the Coco 2 and also the Coco 3, which later went into Extended Color Basic, in which you had a lot of commands for doing high res graphics. You could do all kinds of lines and shapes. This one here really didn't have all that. In fact, the first thing you'll notice is most of the color computer products, the cursor actually cycles through a number of colors. This here is just the simple, just monochromatic basically thing. And as far as the basic goes, you had the, I can't think of another word to use, but basic commands. In fact, let's take a look at the keyboard here. In the other color computer products, the Coco 1, the Coco 2, and the Coco 3, you basically just had a standard keyboard and then you would type in all your commands. The micro color computer includes keywords that can be used to enter commands in automatically. We keep comparing this unit to the Timex Sinclair 1000, but as you can see here, the TS-1000, you have a lot of similarity here between, you've got the keywords that are over the keys. You've also got the graphical symbols, and really, as far as the size and the compactness, you know, there's a lot of comparison between the two. In fact, as I mentioned at the head of the show, it's basically like this in the Coco 2, the Timex Sinclair 1000, and the Coco 2 had a baby, and it was the microcolor computer, even though, once again, Sinclair had really nothing to do with Radio Shack, but it seemed like Radio Shack's answer to Sinclair. The main differences with the Sinclair unit, the keywords were not optional. The keywords, basically, anytime you entered in a line number, the first thing it was looking for was a keyword. And if you tried to type in print, like you would do with a normal computer, what would happen is you'd see on the screen, it would be print rent, because you would hit the P, but the P would hit the keyword for print, and then you'd type in the rest. So it wouldn't come out print, it would come out print rent. In this case, you can also use the keywords, but you have a control button here. So what you would do is hold down the control button and then hit the key. So you could use the keywords, but they weren't mandatory. The other tricky part with this is, normal keyboards, you've got a shift key on both sides. This one, the shift key is only here. So if you think that's a shift key, you use that, you're going to wind up hitting one of the keywords instead of the whatever the normal shifted value would be. Nice thing about the Color Computer 2 is the fact that unlike the Timex Sinclair 1000, the TS-1000 had the membrane touch keyboard, whereas this actually has chiclet keys reminiscent of the Coco 1, but also the Timex Sinclair, the space bar was over here somewhere, whereas this one actually has the full space bar. So what we're going to do now is show you how simple it is to put something in here. Basically just type a small little introductory program here, and what we'll do is we'll go in straight basic. So what I'll do first is basically just go, we'll start with a clear screen, so I just enter in CLS and then CLS, whoops, that's CLA. I'm not selling it a cigarette lighter adapter. There we go. Now, once again, we'll try this. Basically, I am hitting control right now. I hit this key, and the whole word print comes right out, which is one of the ways you can do it. And let's see. And make sure you close quotes. Enter. Now, I want to put double spacing, so what I'm doing is here, I'm just having a blank print command, and that one I typed in, I didn't use the keyword. In fact, normally most of my computing over the years I've been entering in, so I'm just going to type in everything really quick here. Make sure I entered everything in correctly. Yes, I did. And now that we've got the program entered, let's hit run. Ta-da! There we go. Very basic 6-line basic program, and the computer just said hello and welcomed you to Tech Throwback. Now, the computer really didn't have a heck of a lot of support from Radio Shack. It lasted only a year. They were expecting it to fill a certain need in the market, which it never really did. Now, this is the actual page from the 1984 Radio Shack catalog, and you see there they really didn't have many things to go with the MC10. They did have a dot matrix printer and also a thermal printer that could be used with this, but you could use it with a lot of the Tandy dot matrix printers using the 4-pin serial port. But you see here they had right there was $119.95. The RAM module retailed for $49.95, and then they had 4 cassette programs ready to run on the microcolor computer MC10. They had checkers, they had a games pack which included things like Lunar Lander and Breakout and a few other things. They had a math and design program and also pinball, but a really basic program there. Obviously, if you look at the pages for the color computers, they had stuff everywhere, but there really wasn't a lot for this, and really not a lot of chance for this to get established because, as I mentioned, it really was discontinued only a year after it was released. At this point, I'd like to bring in another component to the demo here, just a cassette recorder. Now, they had actually small computer cassette recorders that went with things like this and the Cocos. They actually had a tiny one that went with the TS-1000 too. This one here is just one of my recorders. You could use any recorder really, but it's funny when you use it for something like this because the recorder itself is bigger than the darn computer. But what we have to do now is just hook up the custom cable. The cassette connector's right on the back. And what we're going to do here is I did write a quick basic program for this unit. Whoops. This is what remember I told you about the confusion between the control and the shift. I meant to hit shift 2, not control 2, which is why you're getting this really weird thing here. So let's go back and try this again, this time using the proper key. There we go. And then we enter that in. And you see there, it's found the program. It's loading in and right now off the cassette. Okay, so there we go. Just a quick little basic program that I wrote. And you see it right there. Now, let's see what it does. Hey, I know that show. It's a quick little demo of the TRS-80 microcolor computer, the MC10, released in 1983 by Tandy Corporation, sold through our Radio Shack outlets. And that'll do it for our little look at this computer here. We've got more coming up still, so stay with us here on Tech Throwback. Welcome back to the Tech Throwback Game Room, and today we're going to take a look at a small handheld unit that actually evokes memories of one of the classic consoles of the 1970s and 1980s. It's funny because even though it says Intellivision, it doesn't really look like an Intellivision controller. The Intellivision controller, you may remember, had the numeric keypad with a little disc down the bottom. There actually is an Intellivision emulator that does have those controllers. This isn't it, however. This looks more like almost like a cross between a PlayStation and one of the other controllers. So basically you have the power switches down here. And once again, this is like the other devices where you don't need the separate console anymore. This is basically it. Everything is in the controller. So you've got the power switch here underneath, and then you have your directional, and these actually you can use either one of the directionals here, and then you've got your select and start and all your different gameplay buttons as well, and it all ties in right here. You see, it's just basically it's an audio and video cable that plugs right in and gives you the signal on the set. Now, the first thing about this game system, we also talked about the Atari game system a couple of episodes ago. The Atari game system offered 10 games, and of those there were some that were kind of so really about 5 games that I would use normally on that console. First thing, we'll power this up here, and there we go, the Play Power Techno source Intellivision. And the first thing you notice right away is we'll scroll through the games available. You've got Astros Match, which was a favorite of mine back in the Intellivision days. Star Strike, another one I used to love. Skiing, which I didn't really do much of because skiing for me on a video game is kind of like skiing in real life. Lots of face plants and not very pleasant. Hover Force, which I never really played or heard of. Buzz Bombers. Never heard of it, but interesting sounding title. Space Armadas, which was basically the Intellivision port of Space Invaders. Space Hawk, which was another kind of odd one that I would play from time to time. Shark. I wonder maybe if we twist this around really fast, maybe we'll make Sharknado. I don't know. Space Battle. There's another one where basically you're just blowing up aliens left and right. Thin Ice. Snafu, which is Basically, it's the old Snakes game that you play back and forth. Sub Hunt, golf, Vectron, wrestling. Now we get to some of the sports games here. You got golf, we've got wrestling. You've got football here, which was kind of an interesting thing. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Thunder Castle, Tower of Doom, not to be confused with Temple of Doom. Motocross, Night Stalker. This was a cool game. I used to play this a lot on my sister's Intellivision system. Yes, I didn't have an Intellivision system myself, but my sister did. So when I went to her house to babysit my nephew, that's when I would play Intellivision, and I used to play Night Stalker a lot. Hockey, another one that's kind of interesting. Pinball, baseball. This was one of my favorite Intellivision games of all time. Used to love playing Intellivision baseball. And volleyball and basketball. So there are a lot of games, 25 games in this little piece of handheld technology, which is pretty cool. So without any further ado, let's get into, we'll start with Astro Smash here, which was always one of my favorites. So let's do that now, Astro Smash. And you've even got the old Intellivision splash screen too. So it's not like these are an approximation of the game, it's the actual game. All right, let's get to it. Hit the start button. This is almost like Space Invaders meets Asteroids actually here. Got to be careful about trying for ones that are coming down too fast. You'll wind up under them and you will die like that and like that. And that's one of the things that Astro Smash used to do from time to time. One of the cruel things it would do is you would actually, your guy would die and then it would reform and there'd be an asteroid coming right down on it. So without even blinking, you've lost 2 lives without even knowing what went on here, which was kind of a cool thing, cruel thing. Not cool, cruel with an R, but it's really a cool game to play. Let's go back and see what else we've got here. Go back to the main menu here and Star Strike. Now Star Strike was an interesting game because it was very much like the Death Star trench battle in the original episode 4 of Star Wars, where basically there's a space station coming to destroy your planet and you've got to drop a bomb in their thermal exhaust port and avoid enemy fighters before your world gets blown up. Whoops. And I died and my world got blown up. Let's try that again. Yeah, you can tell I haven't played this for a while. Whoops. Yeah, maybe we ought to try something else here. Here we go. Classic stuff here. Space Armada. Let's do it. And of course, it's hard to avoid aliens that are firing rotini at you. Maybe the next level they come down and they shoot like bow tie pasta or something at you. Come on, 2 more. Come on, move. There we go. You're mine. Ha ha. I always miss that flying saucer at the top. I always. All right, and once again, here come the aliens who march on me and fire rotini. Oh, nope, just missed the big guy, so we'll go there again. Rapid fire, dodging the quickly mounting rotini and going off to victory. So that's Space Armada. Once again, I mean, it's Space Invaders with a different name just slapped onto it. So let's look at some of the other games here. Let's go the other way. Let's see. We'll do baseball, because baseball I was always good at when I used to play Intellivision. World Championship Baseball. All right, here we go. All right, I think I'm pitching here, so there we go. Whoops, there goes the ball, and whoop, nope. Try it again. Batter up. And now I've got two guys on base. I guess the operative phrase here is, I used to be good at this. There we go, one out. But one guy scored. Not good. Kind of hard to pick up the ball, too, with the light infield. As I said, I used to be good at this. Let's go back and see what else we can come up with here. More ways to embarrass myself. Let's see. Astro Smash we've already done. Volleyball, baseball. Actually, Night Stalker. Let's go to this one, because this one was always cool. All right, so you're in this little cage here, and you've got the gun. Now you have to avoid the robot and the bats. So I have three things to avoid. Whoops. And I've got to get out of my little jail cell now and go back. There we go. And now, all right, robot, I'm coming for you now. Wow, this isn't going well. Bang, finally hit something. Bye, robot. There we go. Yay. Oh, no, now I've got to get another gun there. There we go. Whoops. All right, now, around we go. Let's go for Spider Guy here. Nope, because Spider Guy's avoiding me. Here we go. Bye, Spider Guy. So the object here is to rack up as many scores as you can before you get nailed or paralyzed or have your gun taken away. And Robbie the robot's coming after me again. And I've been captured by the robot, and now I'm back in my little prison, and I don't have my gun, which means now I've got to run down and get my gun, but I've also got to avoid the spiders and the robots and bats. Oh my, spiders and robots and bats, oh my. Anyway, I mean, you get the idea here. This is a really nice mashup of the Intellivision console. You've got a good selection of games to work with here. The graphics, I mean, the games, once again, we're talking about, these are the original games. It's not a port, it's not an emulation, it is the actual games, the actual, I mean, you see it right in the original splash screens, and there we go. A lot of fun in the palm of your hand. Speaking of fun in the palm of your hand, coming up next, we've got some handy tech featuring an old friend that's named after a wizard. Back here now in the Tech Throwback Workshop, and we just did a handheld game, but now we're doing another handheld game. This one is an absolute classic. The one we just did was Intellivision, which was a new version of an old classic game. This is the old classic game in the flesh. And by the way, they actually do have new versions of this out now. They actually have new versions of MERLIN, but it's not like this now. It has numerical buttons, and it looks like a cross between an old cell phone and a Space 1999 comm lock. This is the genuine article. And before we start to look at MERLIN, let's take a look at the Tech Throwback white paper for MERLIN. MERLIN, or as it was also called, the Electronic Wizard, was released by Parker Brothers in 1978, and at the time it listed for $25. The handset included 6 games: Tic-Tac-Toe, Music Machine, Echo, Blackjack 13, Magic Square, and Mindbender. In 1980, the Toy Manufacturers of America named MERLIN the best-selling toy and game item. In that year, they sold 2.2 million of these things. And by the way, since the name MERLIN didn't really translate well in the Japanese language, they basically changed it over, and it was released in Japan by Tomy as Dr. Smith, getting back to another Lost in Space reference. The inventor of the unit, by the way, Bob Doyle, is from Massachusetts, and before he did work on MERLIN and some of the other games that Parker Brothers put out, he had worked with NASA. 6 games here, everything selectable from the screens here. You had basically a number of buttons. You had 11 buttons here. You also had 4 down the bottom. Let's take a closer look. The 11 game function buttons not only allowed you to control the game, but also the lights in the middle of the display told you what was going on in the game. Then you had controls down the bottom here. You had a control for new game, same game, hit me, which is if you're playing the blackjack game, and computer turn if you're playing something like tic-tac-toe. So what we'll do is we'll start off now and we'll go with a new game. So you tell it, I want to play a new game. It gives you that little confirmation tone. Now these numbers here, these buttons I should say, have numerical assignments of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 0 or 10. So what we're going to do is select game 1, which is tic-tac-toe. And there we go. So now you're all set. This tells you here it's ready to play. So what you do now is you make your first move. And you got that. And now you hit the computer turn button so the computer can take its turn. Okay, so it goes here. So now I'm going to go here. Computer turn. And he is up there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm there. So now I have a possible couple of moves to go to. Computer move. There we go. I win. Ta-da! And there we go. Now, the thing is with this, you need to hit the computer turn button to get it to play. So for instance, we'll go same game here. If you wanted to be really mean, you just say, I win. Well, yeah, because the computer never took a turn. So remember, after you make your move, always do the computer turn as well. So we'll go back to a new game now. And we'll go to game number 2, which is Music Machine, which basically turns this into a keyboard. And that's basically what it does. So you can make little tunes. Obviously, couldn't be completely accurate because obviously on the scale there are 12 semitones and you've only got 10 buttons to work with here. So some flats and sharps might not be accounted for here, but of course you've got the big speaker right there that points the sound right into your face. There we go. So that's Music Machine. All right, now let's go to game 3, better known as Echo. What it does is it basically lights up a whole bunch of lights here, and then what you have to do is you have to repeat that sequence. Yes, that sounds a lot like Simon because that's basically, it's a memory game with lights and sounds just like Simon. So we'll go to game 4 now, which is Blackjack 13, which is a take on Blackjack. It doesn't go to 21, only goes to 13, so we'll select game number 4. Now this is going to be interesting because you see here, there's a solid light and there's a blinking light. And the solid light is the computer's hand and the blinking light is my hand. So right now, the light for the computer is on 8, which means the computer has 8 right now. I have a 6, which means I hit me. And I'm sorry, that's not a 6, that's a 4. But now that's a 4 and that's a 9, so that's 13. So therefore, I'm going to basically stand. And there we go. And the computer picks out, oh, that's nice. 8 and 5. What we have here is a push. Yeah, thanks. Same game, we'll do it again. And let's see, I've got 10 and he's got 3. I'll stand on the 10. And of course he hits the 7 and once again we have a push. Try it again and let's see, what does the computer have? Computer has a 2 and I've got a 1, so I'm going to need a lot of hits there. 1 plus 8, so that's 9. I'll stand on 9, see what the computer does. And let's see, that's yeah, 2, 4, and 5. So I stood on 9. He's got 11. I lose again. We've had enough of that, I think. So that was game 4, Blackjack 13. We have 2 more games on here. Game 5, which is Magic Square, which basically you have to move around the board to try and make the moves necessary to get the board filled up. And depending on what you hit, you might have the board move a different way. So it's almost a cross between that old sliding tiles game you used to have as a kid where there was 16 open spaces, but you had 15 tiles and you had to slide them back and forth until they all went in numerical order. It always reminded me of like trying to keep cars in like a really tightly packed parking lot and you've got to pull one out to get one over here and so on and so forth. It was a cross between that and a Rubik's Cube, I think. And then there's Mindbender, which is listed as something akin to Mastermind, which is a great old board game that I was a huge fan of. I was actually turned on to it by my brother, who brought a copy of the game back with him after he had been with the Air Force in England for a little while. So I actually still have a version of it at home, along with our stash of board games, and that's a game I'm a big fan of. So this is Merlin, the classic Merlin. And I always wanted one of these as a kid. It was a great game at the time. Kept you really occupied, especially the blackjack and the tic-tac-toe. And this is it. This is the game that came out once again, released in 1978, and they sold millions of these things. And they have them now once again. They have like the classic, retro formula here, but it's not the same thing. They've got number keys now, and it looks like a little cheaper variation of what this was. Parker Brothers put this out originally. I have no idea who puts out the new one, probably Hasbro or some subsidiary there. But once again, one of the classic handheld games of the 1970s. It's called Merlin, the Electronic Wizard. And that's another look back at the way we'd compute and play back in the day. That'll finish up this edition of Tech Throwback. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thanks to my crew, too, for helping out today. And don't forget, we'll be back next time with some more great retro tech right here on Tech Throwback. Thanks for watching.